All right, welcome everyone to the February Extension Focus community, where we talk about modern workplace tools that we feel like might make the life of a modern day extension agent hopefully a little bit easier. Last month, we went into a product called Microsoft Forms, and it was pretty awesome to see the feedback from y'all about Forms and the interest from y'all about Forms. And I had just popped up a poll in the meeting and said, do y'all want to hear more about Forms? And everyone said yes. So guess what we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about more Forms. But my name is Dwayne Hyatt. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft focusing on Teams. And this is my BFF, Joe.
Yeah, again, good morning. I'm a systems administrator and modern work, guess you could say,
Enthusiast.
aficionado, enthusiast here at my university and attempt to drive forward the use of some of these tools. Thanks for joining
Definitely.
us.
We love extension, and I spent a long time alongside Joe supporting extension, and I want to keep that. I want to keep that going. So today we are going to step into what we're just going to generically call Microsoft Forms Part 2. To recap what we talked about last month, if you were not here, Microsoft Forms is a uh, tool that you can use to collect information from people. Sometimes that might be a survey where you're just curious about the sentiment of people who attended one of your programs, or maybe you're trying to evaluate the impact of one of your programs. You could do that with a survey. Another way you could verify that your teaching, had the impact that you were looking for is you could also use Microsoft Forms to create a quiz. The difference between a survey and a quiz is a quiz has right and wrong answers, right? And you can actually do some fun like teacher type stuff and like weight questions differently, multi-part questions and stuff like that. So you could use Microsoft Forms to actually assess some outcome of one of your programs and make sure that the information was transferred, the knowledge was transferred, which is pretty cool. But we're going to dip into a little bit of a different use case for Forms. In this episode, or this part 2 of Microsoft Forms, we're going to talk about Microsoft Forms for actually kicking off the beginning stages of what we'll call a business process. A business process, I'm sure you're all in some sort of system where you had to submit receipts for something that you bought, or you want to fly somewhere, you have to get approval for travel. There's all those types of business processes that we all go through so that we can, live our businessy type lives. So we're going to show you how you could use Microsoft Forms to actually kick off the beginning stages of that process. Because ultimately, if you think about those things, the travel, for example, they're just going to ask you questions, right? They're going to collect data from you. They're going to ask you to fill out something. And Forms already does that, which we showed, last month. But we're going to dip into some more advanced forms, doing some branching, which some of you may have heard of this in other products called something like skip logic, where, if you said no to question 2, then questions 3 and 4 aren't relevant. So you shouldn't have to see them. And we're just going to skip you over to question 5. Forms calls that branching, and we'll show you how to set that up. Sections, so that you can make your form have like I guess a good flow to it, so that as people are filling it out, they're going from section to section to section. That makes it easier on mobile devices as well, and also lets you have like a progress bar in there. Have you ever gotten into a form and started filling out and you're like, how long is this going to take? What did I get myself into? And it can be discouraging, or you could turn it around and make it encouraging and say, like, you're 3/5 of the way there. You're almost done. It's only going to take you 3 more minutes, to fill this form out. So you can do that with some status bars and sections inside of forms. And then Joe is going to put on his wizard hat, and we're going to show you how to take a form that somebody filled out and actually turn it into we'll call it like, what do you think, Joe, like a tracking system
Yeah,
to
I'd say
take requests?
a way to take the form data and use it in a different way, because that's a little easier to access than maybe an Excel file.
Yeah, I mean, Excel's great, right? It's been around a minute, and we've done spreadsheet stuff for decades, literally. However, we're going to show you, the advanced part of this is going to reach out very far in the future. So for this community, we have not yet covered all of the apps that are included in Microsoft 365. So we're going to show you a new one that you haven't seen yet called Microsoft Lists. Microsoft Lists is kind of like you took a spreadsheet and you dropped a Corvette motor in it or whatever, like you souped it up, you put it on steroids, it's all jacked up and ready to go. Lists is a more powerful, almost verging on the edge of databases. And so we're going to show you how forms can talk to lists and create a tracking system for information that you might be collecting. Maybe this is this is going to be called a proof of concept. So, but let's dive into some forms, Joe. And I'm going to be creating our first one, right? So let me share my screen.
Walk through this extension program request.
All right. That should be good, right? Everybody sees my teams. We've got forms up here in the background, and we're actually going to be creating this mock form in the Cloudy County team so that all of you can go and look at it and poke at it and see it and actually be able to, access it so that you can, if you decide you want to try to carbon copy this in the future, we will be able to do that. So we're going to create a form, and by doing that, it's going to create a spreadsheet in our channel here. So I'm in the Cloudy County Extension team. I'm in the Cloudy Chat channel, and I'm going to create the form by using the Forms tab up at the top. We showed a few different ways that you could create forms last month. This is one of them, and I happen to like this method. I'm going to put in our form here. Click save. I happen to like this method because the Excel spreadsheet that is connected to this form, where the data of the responses will actually go, is actually going to be created in this folder, hopefully, theoretically. At least that's what it did last week. So we'll keep running with this and see where it goes. And also, we can access this form through the web. Let me go back to my forms. And here's my form on forms on the web. So request extension or request assistance from extension. And you can see it's already, the AI is already kicked in, Joe. It's already asking me or suggesting to me like, hey, here's some things you might want to ask, and you can just click it and it will pop that in as a question type. But so we're actually going to go with I'll go ahead and select that one. So do that one as a.
Yeah, I've seen that AI. I think last time we showed it, colors. It will pick up days of the week. I think if you put in some type of feedback form for your title, it's going to automatically look for some rating fields and some things like that. It's pretty cool.
Oops, I accidentally selected the wrong question type. This is supposed to be text. So Joe, while I type this in, if you want to give them an idea of what we've got going on here, as I manually build this out real quick.
Yeah, the idea here is taking some requests from your citizens, and they might want a site visit of some sort, crop, nutrient analysis, crop analysis, some help with pest management. So again, we're just going off some experience that we've seen on types of forms and types of assistance our agents give. Just going to collect some basic information and how to access and connect with these folks. What we'll do once we get some of this data in here is we're going to create sections and branching. And what we'll see with sections and branching is a way to split up your form so it's not one huge scrolling list, and a way to make different selection choices, a choice field of some sort that can skip around inside of your form and maybe skip certain questions or jump to a very specific question that you want to do that with.
Okay, so I've gone through this and I've added some of those generic questions, like what's your name, email address, phone number, and your farm name and your physical address. I guess I should put that in there, right? Farm address. And while you're building these out, remember to use this preview button that's up here. This is going to let you see what your form's going to look like as your folks are filling it out. So I always like to do that just to make sure that everything looks like it makes sense. So once we have gone through this initial, like, I don't know, identity type stuff, like who are you and what do you need, it might be a good idea to add a new section here as we start to dig into, okay, now what's your issue? Like, I know who you are now, so that was section 1. Now section 2 might be, let's talk about your problem. Let's talk about what you're contacting us for. So I'm gonna go
Dwayne, actually try
Sorry.
adding a section. Try in a section after phone number. Let's do kind of like that initial contact information and then skip to the farm.
Okay, so between 3 and 4.
Yeah,
right?
let's do one there.
Okay. So in forms, it's helpful to know that you can drag stuff around and move it. So if I wanted to take this one, see that little grab panel right there? This little, was that double meatballs? What do you call that, Joe? So if this is meatballs, then this is double meatballs. You could grab that and see, now I can rearrange these things and move them however I want. But if I wanted to inject something in the middle, just click on the question that you want to put something in underneath it. So like in this case, I want to put it underneath question 3, and I can just do insert new, and I'm going to choose new section. So now this would be like farm info. So this is kind of like a header. So if we go into the preview, you're going to see now on the first page of my form, I only see name, email address, phone number. And if I click net, well, I guess I got a blah, blah, and this is numbers. Now I'm getting into our section of farm info, and now I'm going to start asking information about the farm specifically. And so you'll start to see like the form design is, I think we said this last time, like it's literally a science. And I'm not a scientist when it comes to building forms. I can tell you what the tools can do. But this to me kind of makes sense. It makes it kind of fluid, and I understand what the person is asking me to do. So we got our little section 2 in there, and then we're going to start asking questions. And one thing that's a pro tip here for asking questions in a dropdown or a multiple choice is if you had all these questions typed out, like let's say in Notepad or Microsoft Word or something like that, you can actually just copy them from those lines of text, like I'll demonstrate. Let me grab. Because this, oh gosh, this will save you so much time.
Yeah. Are you using the visit type there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So like, this is going to be, yeah, I don't, oh, visit type. My bad.
Yeah, use the visit type. Yeah.
Yeah. Visit type. So I've got this data already in, like I said, let's pretend this was a Word document and I was collaborating with one of my peers on here's what we're going to ask. If I go add a new question and I make the question a choice question, and I select this very first box and I just hit Control V, it just pasted all those separate line items in. So when you sign up for Cloudy County, or not, like we've done surveys in the past where we've had every single possible land grant institution in the United States you could select from. So we knew what school you were coming from. That was an anonymous survey. We just wanted to know which schools were doing what. Now that I have that information, the next time I go and create a choice question, I can just hit Control V and paste in 100+ schools instead of having to manually type those in. Very, very useful, very important tip to have. So this was what, visit type, Joe? Is that what that was? Yeah, visit type. Okie dokie. So now we're going to get into some of the different stuff. All right, Joe, walk me through your logic here. We're going to have a multi-line.
So what we want here next is perhaps you can ask a little bit of different information with respect to each type of visit type. So you might want to prompt the person for a little bit of a different type of information to get a good answer in there. And we're going to have basically, we're going to end up with 3 new pages or 3 new sections that we can branch off to depending on the visit type. And those are going to be multi-line answers, multi-line questions that people can fill out.
Is that kind of like what you were thinking, Joe?
Yes.
So I guess we should explain this too to the audience so they kind of get what we're thinking here. When folks fill this out, this is going to be a drop down where they get to select what kind of visit are they requesting from you. I need help with crop production, I need a nutrient analysis, or I need help with pest management. So they're going to drop that down and select one. Based on what they select, we are going to take them to a different section inside of Microsoft Forms. So we'll be able to branch them or skip them to the next section based on their selection that they picked here in question number 6. So I'm going to create a section that matches each one of these types of possible visits. So the next one would be nutrient analysis. So I'm going to create a nutrient analysis section. So add new, drop down the caret, section, nutrient analysis. And then in here, I'm going to add a text question that's asking them to describe your nutrient analysis issue, something like that. Is that making sense to everybody? It's awful quiet today. It's early in the morning for some of you, I know. I'm sorry. Let me keep grabbing. So now we're going to get into pest management. That's our next section. So we're going to go add new section, pest management. Oops. It didn't.
That's something nice with each one of these sections is a lot of answers can have an image attached with them, each question. So if you want to kick your forms up a little bit or put examples of what you're asking, you can do that with attach an image for each question.
Okay. These are text answers, and sometimes the text might be, you might need a lot of detail, right? So this toggle right here for long answer is going to let you determine how much information the person could drop into that text-based answer. So I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to make it required, because if you're filling this form out, I don't want you to just say, I have a crop production problem, and then hit submit. And then now I don't know what the context of your question is. So you definitely want to make sure that you set these to, in this example, long and required. In fact, every single one of these questions should have a red asterisk next to it to indicate that it is required. So if we look at our form now,
I think with our branching in this case, we'll see what happens. But that required on each one of those other sections at the end, because they're going to skip them. It'll be interesting to see if Forms allows us to do that because they're required. I think this is a good test. I'm not sure.
I sure hope so. So we haven't done any branching yet, but what you're going to see is as we go through this, if there was no branching, they would go to the next question. They would put in whatever their name is, their farm name, their address, and now they're going to select their visit type. And let's say I selected pest management, and I select next. Well, the very next question that we had configured was crop production. Well, that's not what I asked for, so that's not going to make a lot of sense. So we're going to go back in and we're going to configure branching. And branching is going to be configured on visit type. This is our drop downs. And remember, anytime you want more cool advanced stuff, you're going to go into the meatball menu and we're going to add branching. And this takes us, it's kind of a weird experience because it's like, it just popped me out into like a new looking configuration for building my form, which is odd. But this is how it works. So now we are in the branching settings for question number 6, and it's super easy. If they choose crop production, I want to take them to the crop production section. You can branch to a section or you can branch to a specific question. I like the sectioning better. I feel like it makes more sense to me and it makes the flow of filling out the form a little bit more obvious, and it allows you to, if you come back and you edit this form in the future, you could just add more questions to crop production to that section and it would be good to go. Like you're going to take them straight to crop production. If they do nutrient analysis, I'm going to drop them down to the nutrient analysis section, and pest management, I'm going to take them to the pest management section. Sound good? See, we got use forms to obtain post-training evaluation. Yep, that's versus dealing with the mass that is Qualtrics. Yeah, we always kind of describe this as like what, kind of like a lighter version, Joe, you think?
I mean, it has a number of features that most people kind of might jump into and use, but yeah, it is definitely a lighter. I think it's quicker to build. Some of the other features around creating a form as a template, which we can show, so others can take your form that you've created and make it their form. So you're not, if you end up with a form that a lot of agents want to use, someone can make that a template. So yeah, I think there's very easily copy it. So I think there's a lot of benefits for that ease of use that they've made in Microsoft Forms.
Yeah. So remember, you always want to go into preview after you do something. Go into preview, try it out, see how it feels. Make sure you get the kind of the outcome that you're looking for. So now what we've got is I've got my name, my email, my phone number. I've got my farm name, my address, and my visit type. And then based on what I select, if I select pest management, it should jump me to the pest management section. Boom, where it did. And this is, I know I'm in the pest management section because I have the header right there. And now I have question number 7, which is describe your pest management issue, which is rats, and then submit. Boom, and we're done. So we just made some branching, some skipping based on sections, which I think I'm just going to say is probably the right way to do it. I like doing it that way. Cause like I said, maybe I want to add more questions or remove questions in the future. Like I need more questions about crop production. I could just go in here and click on crop production, insert a new question underneath it, and ask them more stuff. So Joe, did we have a date in here or were you going to add that later?
I think that will be later.
I think I might, I'm just to demonstrate what this would look like. We're gonna add, I'm gonna add a new section. It's gonna be just gonna call it the end because I'm running out of creative ideas here. I just wanted to show date and then put on here like when did your issue start? Because all 3 of these things are issues, and probably in your field as an expert, it would be really helpful to understand, like, have you been years or did this thing just start? Like, are we dealing with a well-established colony or is it just 1 or 2 and we need to, like, take care of it now before it turns into something bigger? So I could see date being, something that you might want to ask. And that should be it. So again, we're going to go back into preview. We're going to type in some stuff. We're going to type in our name. It's going to be pest management. Next, describe your pest management issue. Rats. When did your issue start? It started yesterday, and then submit, and we're done. So hopefully everybody now sees, number one, sections are important. Number two, for drop-down questions, remember you can paste in your answers. Don't sit there and add option and type and then add option and then type. That will take you all day. If you've already got something somewhere that you can copy and paste from, like IT guys know this, like just all we do, half of our job is copy and paste. So make your life a little bit easier, copy, paste, and drop all your stuff in there. And then based on the type of answer that was selected, know that you can do branching. And remember that branching is meatballs here, add branching, and it will take you into this. It is I don't know how to describe that, Joe. Like that's a weird transition. Like I'm looking at my question and I want to work on branching. You think it would like, like, oh, you want to do branching? Well, we're going to add some stuff here that tells you that you're doing branching, but it doesn't do that. It kicks you into the branching menu. Boom. Now I'm in that. And now I can go through here and I can do branching based on the selection that they picked. I can take them to the next section. So I get it. If you were doing a lot of branching, you could do all your branching stuff from here all at one time. You see all the branching for the entire form. If it was a really complicated form, maybe this would be more useful to you.
Let's stay in there, Dwayne, for a second. If you scroll down down into, so if we hit, let's look at this. If we were to skip into crop management, if we ask for crop management, we want to skip to the end, right?
Yeah.
So otherwise it would go. Otherwise, if someone chose crop management, they would go into nutrient analysis next, and then pest management next. So that's the last piece there. Is once you get into this skip, you might need to skip one more time to skip over the remaining questions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call out. I forgot to do that. By default, it just says after they complete this question, where do you want them to go next? And it would just be, the next question, which would be irrelevant to them. They don't want to talk to you about nutrient analysis. They pick crop production. Is that making sense? This is getting kind of muddy.
And if you were to real quick show that drop down again, Dwayne, there is simply just end of form. And if you choose end of form, that question or that section will have a submit button on it. That's basically you're done. That's where the submit button will end up.
Yeah. So boom. End of form. Even though I call this the end, I guess we could call that something more descriptive, but like I said, I ran out of ideas. Remember to tweak your collection options. So also you can do some pretty stuff with like theming. We talked last month about there's new videos. You can even add background music if you want to really, I don't know, make it fun. We want to click the meatballs up here at the top right, and we want to manipulate the settings of our form so that people outside our organization can fill this form out. By default, it's going to say only people within my org can respond. So I want to change that because I need answers from people who are outside my organization, right? I want to hide the option for them to just sit there and continually enter. And I can show the progress bar. If it were a quiz or something interesting, you could do shuffling, but I don't really feel like that would make sense here. And then you can do some receipts where the people can put their email address in and they can get a copy of what they submitted, and they can also download it. I think, Joe, doesn't it give them the option to print it as a PDF?
Yeah, they get an option for that.
Yeah. And Joe, I see you're in here playing around with my form because remember, and again, last month we talked about you can think about a form in the Microsoft ecosystem as kind of like a document. right? It has you're going to share it with people. You're going to let people review it. You're going to maybe have collaborators that want to edit it and work on it with you. And actually, technically, remember where I created this form in the very beginning? I created it in the Cloudy County channel. So every single one of you could be my collaborator. Every single one of you could jump into this form and start working on it. So we should be good to go here, and we are going to, oh, I see you in there. That was pretty cool. Oh, and I think this is interesting. If you see that, that means that there's branching. That's kind of a neat little, I don't know. I've never seen that anywhere, but that lets you know that this form includes some branching. And I feel like that's really important to understand when you start working on a form, because if let's say you just jumped into a form and you didn't realize that branching was there, it'd be it could get hairy pretty quick. Like you could accidentally break something. So just wanted to throw that out there, that little indicator tells you that there's some branching.
Dwayne, while you're in there, now they've added some description in there. If you'd edit that description and maybe double click on extension vegetable program or something like that and highlight that, I just want to show that you can do formatting in there.
Yep. Yeah, you get some advanced formatting. This is relatively new. I would say 6 months-ish, maybe somewhere in there. And it's not super obvious, but if you do something with some text, you'll get this kind of thing pop up above your mouse cursor where you can play around with it and you could like highlight it, you know. Ugh, gosh, that's not good. Let's set that back. Actually, we'll just go automatic. There we go. Okay, so our preview, here's what our form is looking like. Looking pretty good. We've got our progress bar down here at the bottom that lets us know how many sections we are on our way through, which is handy. I love that they added that. And then I think it does it automatically come up with time to complete? I can't remember. You can add a timer on it, but that's not that's not what you want. The timer is, they have like 5 minutes to fill the form out, or else it ends it, and that's not what you want. That would be for like a timed quiz. But we'll just run with what we've got now. So let's see. Yeah, that color was definitely not digitally accessible. That is for sure. I couldn't see it at all. Okay, so I think we're good here. Janet brought up a good point that while we're designing our form, you'll notice that visit type is question number 6. And nutrient analysis, describe your nutrient analysis question, is actually question number 8 in the designing of the form. However, in the filling out of the form, I'm going to go to nutrient analysis. And so look, I'm on question number 6. Remember what question nutrient analysis was? It was 8. It's actually 7. Because when you're branching, it's just going to dynamically increment the questions. It would be kind of, to the person filling the form out, it wouldn't make a lot of sense if they were tracking what question they were on. How did I go from 6 to 8? Where was 7? Did I miss something? You know, it could be a little confusing. So branching is going to dynamically, the forms is going to keep things incrementing in order, in numerical order. So thank you, Janet, for calling that out. Okay, so now we've got this, and let's find our spreadsheet. Figure out where it went. And remember, behind every form is a spreadsheet. This is the raw data. This is the entry that is being put in here. I think what I might do just for some fun is we're gonna ask for the audience to help us. So I'm gonna copy this link, drop that in there. And hopefully we can get some people to fill this out for us, and we can get some mock data to play around with. And I'm going to show, we're going to do this 2 times. The first time that we're going to do it, I want it to dump a bunch of data into Excel. And then the second time that we do it, Joe is going to do some wizardry with it. And Joe, have I stalled long enough or have I stalled too long?
We'll manage.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we don't go long. So if some of you could just, jam a bunch of random messages in there, or data in there, and we'll start to see this start to populate. And you'll start to realize if this was how you were tracking the requests, it's not pretty, right? Like Excel is great at having a bunch of data in here, but Excel's not super awesome at, like, I don't know. I don't feel like this is where I would want to work if I were tracking issues, or this guy's got a rat problem and it started last Monday. I need to get in here and go help him. So hopefully, there we go. I was about to say, is the form working? Is it broken? Okay, perfect. And again, if you missed this magic trick from last month, this is one of the really cool things that Forms does, is you don't have to go download this Excel spreadsheet to get like the most recent data. It's always up to date, always. This data file sitting behind your form, as soon as somebody enters it, you're going to see the data coming in. Like I'm looking at it live and you can actually see, this is kind of cute. The SharePoint app is currently working on this workbook with me. So the same kind of co-authoring that you'd get if Joe jumps into this workbook with me. And like I said, you're going to start to see that, okay, this is good. I've got these requests. I have their address. I can see the things that, we've got a crop production problem. We got a pest management problem. And I don't know, the data's there, but it's not pretty. So Joe, how do we make this pretty?
Let's real quick. I think we've got a couple questions in there. One was just, what does that form look like mobile, and
Oh,
why are emails anonymous? Is that like in the first column area?
yeah. So this column here, I understand how this could be a little confusing. This column here is connected to, let's go back to the form, is connected to our settings of the form. If this form was set so that only people in my organization could fill it out, that would require you to have a login. So if you're at the University of Florida, you'd have to have a ufl.edu email address, and you'd have to be able to sign in with the username and a password to access my form and fill it out. If you have this button selected, I can automatically record information about you. And one of those things that's automatically recorded is your email address. And that's what this column is. You can create a question manually that says, what's your email address? Which I've done here in column H, and we've got people typing it in manually. It's not being automatically collected. You can't automatically collect a email address from somebody who you don't know who they are, right? And so that's why these columns right here are a little bit different, because they're being filled out by people who are not from my organization. Hopefully that makes sense. And the mobile device, that's a great question. You're going to see up here under preview. So last month I harp on this a lot with forms. Always go back and forth in preview. It's going to help you with your design. And one of the options is mobile. You can actually see what the form would look like if somebody on a tinier screen were filling it out. This is another reason why sections are really good. You don't want this infinitely long scrolling thing on an iPhone, right? It's helpful to be able to jump to the next section and just fill out the next 3 or 4 questions rather than just scrolling. So using the mobile button there will give you an idea of how this would be formatted on a smaller screen. All right, Joe. You gonna fire up a VM, or we got a list
Yeah,
going? What do we got?
I'll take over this. So the goal here is, like we saw that Excel file. Is there an easier way to kind of view that data and maybe do some post collection information and work on it? Our favorite thing that we like to use for Microsoft Forms data that we collect is to push it into a Microsoft list or a SharePoint list. And what you're looking at here is a SharePoint list. This is in the Cloudy County extension. We'll be able to kind of get you into these and take a look at it. So I've recreated a list. If you are in a SharePoint site, if you're in site contents, you can come up and click new, and you can click a new list. That's how to get started with creating a new list. So that's what I did here. I named it Site Requests.
And can I interrupt? Because
Yep.
you can also create a list as a tab in a channel, correct?
Good way to get started. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I want to make sure for those of you who might not be in SharePoint all that much, in Teams, any channel that you're in, the new plus button at the top, MS Lists, is one of the options you can choose from to create a list there too.
Yeah. So again, we're going to try to take this data and do something else with it, and maybe manage these requests that are coming in. So again, I've got a list here. I've added some columns. So I'm gonna show you how to add some other columns that we want to add. These are all columns that came in from a form. So these are our email. We asked for phone and the farm name, location, a visit type. What happens when these come in? How do you decide if you're going to go out there and talk to someone? So I'm going to add a status column. Click this little add column, add choice, call this status, and let's do new, confirmed, and completed. And we can set a default value of new. Save that. And let's say, when are we going to go ahead and go out there? So let's just add a date field and visit date. We can include time if we want. And the last one let's do is who's going to go do the work. So we can add a person column. And this is going to pull information from your identity system, your Microsoft Cloud world. So this is, let's just say, assigned. You can even put a profile picture in there. So conceptually, if we have this, we'll go to this, when these forms submissions come in, you can come in here and decide to update this form. You can double click on it. I can set the status. Typically, they're going to come in as new, but let's say we've called these folks, we've confirmed. We're going to go visit this date, and we're going to visit at, say, 3 p.m. And that's, I'm going to go, let's say, James Kirk is going to go do the work. Okay.
And I think you're taking the data that's come in through forms, he's going to show how to do that. But then you're adding useful columns that are useful for your business process, right? Like the person who filled the form out, they don't have any say over what the status is or when you're going to come out or who's actually going to do it. So those are internal pieces of data that help you and your team track this. We're changing this just from a giant spreadsheet to an actual tracking system.
Yep. Now, in this case, this form was created in a team. So there's one little step we have to do first, and that is understand that every form has an ID. So this form has an ID that is right up here in the URL. This is the best place and pretty much the only place to go get that. So I'm going to get that right now. If this form had been created in my, like a personal form I created, we wouldn't need to do that, but we'll see what that is like. So I'm going to just copy that. We're going to use our program called Power Automate. This is our workflow engine, part of the 365 suite. In our little app launcher bar, Waffle, you'll find it here called Power Automate. And we're going to create a flow. And flows always have a trigger. Something starts a flow. What happens to make this flow launch? And then there's actions once you get a trigger. So I'm going to create a new flow. And I want to build an automated cloud flow. That means there's some trigger that happened, which in this case is going to be a form submission. There's other ways you can schedule forms. You can schedule a form to run, once a week, once a month. But this one we want it anytime there's a submission. So I'm going to click Automated Cloud Flow. This wizard's going to kind of walk us through getting started to get our trigger going. So let's do flow name. This is going to be site requests. And we need a trigger. So it's very popular. First one here is when a new response is submitted in Microsoft Forms. I'm just going to click that and get started. And first thing it needs is we need to kind of start filling this out. It kind of walks us through the information that we need to provide it. So typically I could come in here and I'm going to see the forms that I own that I've created personally, but it's not going to show me some shared ones, which are in a team. So I need to enter a custom value. I'm going to click custom value and I'm going to paste in that form ID. We've got our trigger set up. The next thing we need to do is go collect that answer. Go collect what was submitted. And the next step is in this workflow is forms. Looking for forms. And I need to go get that response. I need to get the details that were submitted. Same thing here. I need to provide it a form ID. Do this again. Custom. There's my form ID. And this again is trying to help me fill this out. There's a little bit of a wizard. I need to know an identifier of that form response. Like there was 20 responses that we just had, let's say. I need to know what response just came in. Was it number 7, number 8? And this is what this response ID is. There's templates for this. There's really great walkthroughs in order how to do this. Once you do a form like this one time, this templating, this process gets to be, you'll just remember it every time. That's how this works. Now, my next step is I want to push that into SharePoint. Next step, I'm going to search for SharePoint. Or SharePoint, this is a connector into the SharePoint world that we have. And I want to create an item. So I'm going to search for create item. So I'm going to create an item in a list. Now, again, it's continuing to walk me through where do I want to create it at? And I've got a site address.
Can I say something real quick, Joe?
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
That's another thing that I forgot we used to teach with SharePoint lists versus an Excel spreadsheet. In an Excel spreadsheet, everything's just in the spreadsheet, right, as rows and columns. In a SharePoint list, even though it looks like rows and columns, it's actually each one of those things is its own individual item, which is why Joe had to say create item. We're creating an entry in a database, more or less. So the foundation of it is a little bit different. So hopefully that makes this create item make a little bit more sense.
Yep, correct. So now I've told it what SharePoint site I'm going to connect to. I'm going to put it into our Cloudy County extension team, and it sees the list that exists. I created that site request list, and that's what I want to push it into. Now a little bit of magic shows up here, and it shows me the columns that are in that list that I had created. So I created these columns, and now I get to continue this wizard and click through each one of these and add my form data. So in the title, I'm going to click in here. And again, here's a little wizard that pops up. And these are all of our form responses. I click into title. That's what we want to put the person who submitted. I can click into email address, phone number. That's farm. That must be farm name, farm location, farm address, and visit type. We want to enter a custom value. It even knows with the values that are there, but we want to pull it from the form. So we're going to do custom value. And in here we have visit type. And I'm looking at the time. Right now, I am going to I'm just going to collect crop. Let's collect just the crop answer for now. Describe your crop production issue. When I get back from vacation, I'll fix this up and show you how to grab any answer, but I'm just going to grab one right now. And now these aren't the status value. Again, it's going to default to new. Our visit date, assigned claims. That's the person who's going to be assigned to this event, this visit. Those are, we don't need to fill those out. Those are, we're going to do after this has been submitted. I'm going to hit save. And we're saved. We're ready to test this. So our goal would be right now is to see if anyone wanted to go back through and fill that form out. If we do that and we get lucky, we may see some more options and more answers enter this. Actually, I'll go back to the flow and go to its run history. We've got one succeeded here, completed. And there we go. Crop production status new, something's come in. Now, built right into SharePoint is there's ability to do alerts. So if you wanted to set up an alert me, you could say, when there's a new item, send me a quick email, let me know there's something there. You can actually run a flow that says, hey, there's a new item in this SharePoint, do something to it. Or even in our flow, we went back to this, we could maybe send an email after this if we wanted to. You could post a message into a team, into a channel, and say, hey, there's been a new request, but there's hundreds of connectors and actions that can take place with this data, and there's a lot you can do with it. Hopefully this is just enough. Go back, watch the recording, and I will be updating this information in the team. Along with the flow, I'll put a little picture of what that flow looked like again, and give you an opportunity to try that back in your own tenants.
You're a wizard.
So yeah, here's email. Again, you could send an email with that data. Could again put it into a Teams channel, Microsoft Teams. Push it. There's a lot of things you can do with it. Create a Teams meeting. It's pretty amazing. Once you kind of open this world up and start playing, it's pretty cool. There's templates right here that help you kind of get started to see how this works. This is a great place to get started. You can so if we just put in forms, we can see a lot of things that get started with Microsoft Forms. Create a task and planner for something that comes from forms.
You're melting brains, Joe.
Yeah, it's all over. Get them started.
I'll show one last thing real quick.
Yep.
Before we conclude, I'm gonna share over top of you, Joe. I went into our Cloudy County team. So if all of you switch your teams into Cloudy teams and the Cloudy County, in Cloudy Chat, I added this as a lists tab. So you'll see here lists, and now I have access to all of these items as they were coming in. So these are the 3 that Joe made manually when we were testing, and then these are the ones that are kind of flowing in as people are filling out the form. And so you're seeing that the data started off in forms, and that form could be linked on your county extension office's website or embedded or whatever. And now we're actually piping that data out of forms. It's still in Excel, but we're kind of skipping over Excel and shoving it straight into something that's a little bit more useful, like Microsoft Lists. Because if, let's say I need to help, I'm crop production, I live near Happy Trails Farm, or I know Happy Trails Farm is my client, I could click on this item and go in here and kind of like take ownership of it, right? So I'm going to assign it to myself and take ownership of it. And I'm going to set the status to confirmed, and I'm going to schedule a site visit for Friday the 10th, right? And then go back to my list. Now, everyone else who's in my office or in my team is now using this list as kind of like, Andrew said in the chat, like a ticketing system in a sense, right? So people are going to see as they scroll over, oh, Dwayne grabbed that one. And he's going to go out, he's confirmed it. Like, and you could do filters, and say, show me all the ones that Dwayne's working on, or show me all the tickets that are still in a state of new. You can do all those filters there. If you bump into out of Teams and into SharePoint using the meatball menu and do open in SharePoint, which it looks like here, there's a little automate drop down, and you can create rules. And this is kind of like flowing inside of the list. You can say every single time a new item is created, send an email, and it will alert put in the email of your team, or put in your own email or whatever. You can say anytime that anytime a column changes, or a value in a column changes, we're going to say if people, so it's been assigned, it, has a value. I'm sorry, I'm kind of winging this here. Basically, what you could do is have it email a person to let them know, hey, you've been assigned something. So yeah, it's kind of like a DIY ticketing system. Pretty powerful, and you start to see really quickly how Microsoft Lists is definitely not like Microsoft Excel as far as just rows and columns. It's a lot more than that. The integration is very, very, very powerful. Even just this people column, like you're pulling in anybody, the people column has to be somebody inside your organization. So let me make that clear. You could not use the people column and assign it to an outside consultant. It's pulling people, their profile card, stuff that they've worked on recently. So this would be your internal tracking system. But yeah, that's pretty sweet demo, Joe. Good job. And you did it in record time too. Oh gosh, boom. So that was forms. That was more advanced stuff with forms. Hopefully everybody sees now that you can think beyond surveys and assessments and move into the world of like business processes and tracking items and having these things that ordinarily might require a lot of steps. You can use Power Automate to automate that workflow and make it do stuff for you behind the scenes. Super powerful tool, very deep rabbit hole. As Joe kind of started to tumble into it, when you can see all those templates that are there that help you get started and kind of demonstrate some of the things that you could be doing automatically, which means you have less stuff on your plate, which means you have more time to do stuff. So hopefully everybody found this really helpful and useful. Definitely go back and watch the recording, and don't forget that the form and the list are actually in the Cloudy County team. So if you want to go poke at it and look at it, you're more than welcome to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording and tell everybody bye. We'll hang out for a few minutes if anybody wants to come off mute and has any questions. So Thanks everybody for joining us. So we really appreciate you spending your time with us.